This evening. Ambassador Burns is the Professor of Practice of Diplomacy at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. He was most recently the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, a position which he started in March of 2005. He was a career Foreign Service officer and has served in very senior positions in both Republican and Democratic administrations, including as Special Assistant to President Clinton and Senior Director for Russia and Eurasia from 1990 to 1995. I was actually in Kigali, Rwanda this summer, and I was taking a tour with the U.S. ambassador of a school which was being built there. And the ambassador had his intern who was visiting from Harvard and was working in Kigali and was visiting from Harvard that summer. And Ambassador Symington asked me, what advice could you give to this young lady who's going to be going back to Harvard in terms of good classes to take and various activities she should be doing? And I turned the question back to him and I said, well, I know that Ambassador Burns has recently gone to Harvard and will be teaching there. And when I mentioned that to him, his eyes, it was a done discussion in terms of where exactly she should be spending her time and a good activity she should be doing. So we're very fortunate to have him here with us today. This event is sponsored by Foreign Affairs Magazine, and this is the James Chase Lecture Series. James was previously the managing editor of Foreign Affairs for over a decade, and today is actually a special night because it would have been James's birthday. So, and we're very fortunate to have his daughter Sarah Chase here as well. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ambassador Burns.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Carter. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to be here. And the first thing I want to say is it's a great honor to follow in the footsteps of James Chase and to have Sarah here. We both live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but she's here from Cambridge as I am as well. And it's a remarkable family. He was a great American diplomat, and Sarah's mother is receiving one of the most prestigious poetry prizes tonight at the New School. So it's quite a remarkable family, and I'm pleased to be here in that vein. I know it's Friday night. I know that at least the students here do not want probably to stay very long listening to someone talk about foreign policy. I'm mindful of that. And my own daughter, Elizabeth, who lives in New York, is here. We're going to go out to dinner afterwards. So, so it won't be a marathon discussion of American foreign policy, but I'm going to stand right here because we do want to catch this for the online service at Bard, and I just want to thank Bard for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here. I thought what I'd do is just give you a few thoughts about how Barack Obama is doing in foreign policy. And what are the central challenges that he and our country have to meet? And what are some of the strategies that the Obama administration might employ so that we can be successful in our foreign policy? I'll try to do that relatively briefly because I always find when I speak that it's always more interesting to hear from other people than it really is, and to get people's ideas and to respond to any questions and have give and take. So I want to get to that fairly early in the proceedings, especially if the students have questions. I'd be happy to answer any. Let me just say I was an American diplomat for 27 years, 3 months and 9 days. And the reason I know that is when I retired, they actually sent me letters that you served for 27 years, 3 months and 9 days. I had it down to the day. And it was a tremendous experience to serve the United States. Career Foreign Service officers like myself are not politically oriented. We're supposed to be nonpartisan. We can vote, we can have our own political views, but we're not supposed to be demonstratively political, because you do need a group of people in the government who will serve whichever president is elected by the American people. And so I started as an intern in 1980, just after graduate school, in Nouakchott, Mauritania, which is a very interesting country in the west coast of Africa, northwest Africa and the Sahara Desert. It was the administration of Jimmy Carter, and I served all the way through to early 2008 for President George W. Bush. So I served both Republican and Democratic presidents. There is a difference, by the way, usually between them, and especially in foreign policy. I'd be happy to talk about public service and what it's like to work for the U.S. government. We're beginning next week at Harvard a week celebrating public service at Harvard College for the undergraduates and in all the Harvard graduate schools, trying to convince our students that, you know, among the many choices you have, one of them is to serve our country in whatever way you think that you would like to do that. It could be doing what I did, being a foreign service officer and moving around the world with your family, living in different countries, and serving in embassies, working on foreign policy. It could be in the U.S. military as a military officer, whether you're male or female. Plenty of opportunities to do that. It could be the Peace Corps. It could be working for an NGO. It could be working for social justice or poverty alleviation in our own country, as well as overseas. There's lots of things you can do to serve our country, and I'm sure that the students here are thinking about that, and I hope you will, because it's always good to earn money and, you know, work for J.P. Morgan or Goldman Sachs, but frankly, there's a lot of problems that we need to resolve in our society and around the world that need our best young people to work on. And so I hope that you'll think about that, and I'd be happy to discuss that as well. What do I think of Barack Obama? I think he's off to a great start as president. I really respect him, admire him. I think he's done a great job of bringing the United States back into the mainstream of the international community. He made some good decisions early on, in my judgment. The decision to close Guantanamo. He hasn't done it yet. Very difficult. It turns out it's legally difficult. It turns out that a lot of the states don't want to accept prisoners from Guantanamo to be incarcerated in our states, which I think is unfortunate. But that decision was a good one, I think, because Guantanamo, whatever merits it may have had, in my judgment, had become a really negative symbol of our country for a lot of people around the world. The decision to end torture, which he and Senator McCain agreed on. Senator McCain spent 5.5 years as a POW in Vietnam, had been tortured. I thought it was very significant that he came out and spoke against torture. And now President Obama has said we will abide by the Geneva Conventions, which is the right decision. The decision that the United States would be at the center of the climate change debate, not on the periphery. When I went around as a diplomat over the last decade, and you know, when I visited a foreign capital on behalf of our country, I had my shopping list. I had things that we wanted that government to do for us. Invariably, especially in Europe, people would respond to me and say, well, I know you're interested in terrorism. I know you're interested in Afghanistan. I know you're interested in I'm interested. My government's interested in climate change. And you haven't signed Kyoto, you haven't ratified Kyoto, and you're not part of the solution. So the fact that President Obama has said that climate change is a priority, and that we have to do our part, and that we have to be part of this Copenhagen process, you know, the big international meeting 2 months from now in Copenhagen, to try to establish a schedule of carbon emissions so that we can begin to combat climate change, I think that was very positive. And finally, the fourth thing I'd say, in addition to Guantanamo, torture, and climate change, since I believe in diplomacy, I teach it at Harvard, I embodied that in my career, I was a diplomat, I think the fact that he believes in diplomacy, engagement, in negotiation, has also raised the credibility of the United States. Because whether it's North Korea or Iran or Sudan or Zimbabwe or Burma, these really difficult countries that we work with around the world, President Obama has said, well, the first thing we should do is to sit down with these countries. And we had gotten ourselves into a position, I think, unfortunately, over the last 7 or 8 years, where sometimes we said, well, if we don't like the government, we're just not going to talk to the government. And that sometimes makes you feel good. You can spurn someone, but it doesn't get much done. It doesn't test the proposition that on really difficult issues, there might be a peaceful way out, not just a violent way out. And as someone who really believes in diplomacy, it doesn't mean I'm a pacifist. There are times when you have to defend your country. Second World War is a pretty good example of that. But there are other times when you try to use your ingenuity, your skill, your wisdom, your experience to try to convince someone across the table either to stop what they're doing or to change their behavior or to agree through compromise. And usually international politics is about both sides compromising for the common good when we can advance the goals of our country. And I think President Obama has really lived that. I know that some people on the right wing are very unhappy with him for negotiating with Iran. I think he's doing the right thing. So those are some preliminary remarks.